McCarthyism and the Red Scare. With the end of the Second World War in 1945, the Allies were declared victorious. The two major powers in the world became the US and the USSR. Even though they had worked together in the war to defeat the Nazis, there was a growing tension between the two powerful nations. The US feared the power that the Soviets were gaining in post-war Europe, especially Eastern Europe. The USSR during that time was expanding into Europe and Asia, with communism spreading throughout the world.
Time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to laugh, a time to weep. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to build up, a time to break down, a time to dance, a time to mourn, a time to weave, a time to gather stones together. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
China became communist in 1949, while the USSR was taking over East Germany, imposing communism on Europe. Some people anticipated a kind of domino effect. If one country fell to communism, then all its neighbors will fall too. Americans were afraid the domino effect would reach them, while communism got closer to home. This fear was realized when the island nation of Cuba became communist during a revolution led by Fidel Castro in 1959.
There is a season, turn, turn, turn.
Fear spread throughout the US. People believed that communist spies had infiltrated the government and that their freedom was on a precipice as communism drew nearer. This period of fear and doubt, 1940s to late 1950s, is what we now call the Red Scare.
A time to rend, a time to sow, a time of love, a time of hate, a time of peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every.
During the Red Scare, some decided to take advantage of the situation and use people's fear of communism to gain power and control. The most notorious person to have used people's fear of communism for his own benefit is Senator Joseph McCarthy. Senator Joseph McCarthy was a senator from Wisconsin who fed the fear of communism to the American people to benefit his own gains. He claimed he had a list of 205 names of communist infiltrators working in the government. This had a great effect on the American population, since to them it was proof of communists infiltrating the government. He made these claims in order to gain support for his re-election.
Time ago, where have all the flowers gone? Young girls pick them, every one. When will they ever learn? When will they ever learn?
During the Red Scare, hundreds of people were accused of being communist. This ruined their reputation, making them lose their jobs. The House of Un-American Activities, established in 1938, led the witch hunt for communists in the U.S. The HUAC interrogated the political ties of members of peace organizations, liberal political groups, and labor unions. Hundreds were asked the question, "Are you or have you ever been part of the Communist Party?" They were also asked to name anyone else they might have seen doing anything that marked them as communist. Because of the fear of communism in the American people, anyone accused of having communist ties was immediately blacklisted. Their reputation and job would be ruined. By the end of 1951, more than 20,000 federal workers had been investigated from these From these, 2,000 resigned and more than 300 had been fired.
Where have all the young men gone? Gone for soldiers, everyone. When will they?
The Hollywood 10 were a group of film directors and writers who were accused of being communists by the HUAC, but refused to answer any questions. The Hollywood 10 were sent to jail for refusing to answer the HUAC's questions. Many people protested against the Hollywood 10 being sent to jail.
Soldiers gone a long, long time ago. Where have all the soldiers gone?
Calling the House Un-American Activities Committee to order, Chairman J. Parnell Thomas of New Jersey opens an inquiry into possible communist penetration of the Hollywood film industry. The committee is seeking to determine if Red Party members have reached the screen with subversive propaganda. Mr. Thomas takes an impartial stand in his opening talk.
I want to emphasize at the outset of these hearings that the fact that the Committee on Un-American Activities is investigating alleged communist influence and infiltration in the moving picture industry must not be considered or interpreted as an attack on the industry itself.
A widespread rumor throughout the U.S. claimed that there were spies from the Soviets in the U.S. trying to steal information about the hydrogen bomb. Alger Hiss and the Rosenbergs were accused of being spies for the Soviets. Alger Hiss was accused by Whittaker Chambers, a former member of the Communist Party, of having given the Soviets secret State Department documents. Hiss denied all the accusations against him, but apparent incoherencies in his testimony weakened his opposition. Alger Hiss tried to sue Whittaker Chambers for making false statements, but Chambers brought forth some documents he had kept hiding in a pumpkin in his house, which showed proof against Hiss. Alger Hiss was sentenced to 5 years in prison for perjury. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were accused of giving the Soviets information about the atomic bomb, which some claim was the reason why the Soviets managed to make the bomb so much earlier than the U.S. expected. Protesters defending the Rosenbergs claimed that they were victims of the Red Scare witch hunt. Nevertheless, the Rosenbergs were tried, found guilty, and executed in June 1953. Both the Hiss and Rosenberg cases greatly fed the fear of communism in the Red Scare because not only did it give them proof of Soviet infiltration in the U.S. government, but also made the threat of the Soviet bomb more real. After having terrorized and blacklisted hundreds of federal employees and ruined many careers and reputations, McCarthy moved to attack the army. No one dared oppose McCarthy because if they did, he would accuse them of being communists, and then they themselves would end up blacklisted. It was the arts and the media that managed to bring McCarthy down. McCarthy's accusations against the army were shown on TV. Then people saw that McCarthy was aggressive and had little concrete evidence. The arts also criticized McCarthy, such as in the play The Crucible, and McCarthy's tactics of accusation are compared to the Salem witch trials. McCarthy's popularity rapidly decreased along with his power in the U.S. Senate.
Mr. Chairman,
the news story on that.
under these circumstances, I must myself have something approaching a personal privilege. Senator McCarthy, I did not know, Senator, sometimes you say, may I have your attention? May I have your attention? Now this time, sir, I want you to listen with both. Senator McCarthy,
The Red Scare itself did not end completely until the USSR collapsed in 1989. The Red Scare was an important time in history because it powered the Cold War. It led to hundreds of people losing their jobs and even some killed, like the Rosenbergs. Since there were Soviet spies in the US at that time, just the same as there were US spies in the USSR, the fear that the public had was based on some truth. However, was capturing the few spies really worth ruining hundreds of people's lives?